So I've been here 15 years teaching psychology, and before that 3.5 years, almost 19 years. I think racism is when a person or a group of people believe that their race is superior to all other races, regardless of what that race is, and they treat other races as inferior and discriminate or are prejudiced against other groups. A disorder? Wow. Well, it would be almost the same as an illness, except typically a disorder is classified as a psychological problem, so it would be a psychological illness. Yeah, it would be. I think it would be someone who has some maladaptive thinking or behavior process that really doesn't allow them to appropriately interact in society. So yeah, I guess you could classify it as a disorder. Mostly fear. I think people are afraid of things that are different from them, and they don't even attempt to try to understand. They just make it bad, whatever that difference is. And I think that's why hate groups have such a firm hold on things. They work on people's fear, and they say, oh, it's all the Spanish people's fault, or it's all the black people's fault, or whatever. And when people don't understand, then they react in a bad way. Yes, to some extent, but I also think if more people were just aware, more teachers were more aware of the intolerance that they have and would practice what they preach, kind of thing. And I don't mean teachers here specifically, I mean teachers in general, adults in general. I think that would be a help. But I do think if we had more multicultural education, that would be a good start. Wow, I don't know if there is a possible solution to racism. I think transforming the believers is really the only way that you're going to do that, and that's going to require a whole lifestyle change and a whole economic change and a whole governmental change, and I'm not really sure that it's ever going to happen. You know, I lived through the 60s and the 70s and was brought up in a family where there were all kinds of slang names for other racial groups and stuff like that, and I chose to ignore that. Obviously, as I have a biracial child, but I chose to ignore that. But people don't ignore it. You know, if people continue to be raised with racist ideas, there's always going to be racists.
I'm going to read Fingerprints and Crayons by Cheryl Costello Forche. With chalk in hand, she wrote her name across a board once bare, and then she sat behind her desk without a single care. And for 15 minutes she did not make a sound until the final student had finally settled down. Then she stood before them and told them all her name, and then politely asked each student to do the same. Then without hesitation she took papers from a sack and placed them in two piles, one white, the other black. And deliberately and quite slowly, with a slight mischievous smile, she began handing out the papers up and down each aisle. And once each student had a piece, he continued within their sights. He gathered two piles of crayons, one black, the other white. And then she took a painting from behind her walnut desk, then placed a painter's smock over top her navy dress. And to no one in particular she spoke in peaceful tones. I've been working on this painting for years in my own home. She stood staring at the painting, its brilliant colors mixed as one, upon a vast horizon, the presence of a sun. It indeed was not a Rembrandt, a Picasso, or Michelangelo, to say the least, but it nonetheless was beautiful. Its presence spoke of peace. And no doubt that lovely painting had taken so much time, for every color known to man seemed to intertwine. And so it came with wonder what they witnessed with surprise, the act that took them all off guard, done right before their eyes. With finger paints now gathered and opened on her desk, she smeared the colors upon her hands in a tangled, awful mess. And then, as though she lost her mind, she smeared her hands across the painting once so beautiful, now a total loss.